So this year, we're going to be studying biology. In biology, if you split this word in two, bio is life and ology is study. So if we really want to just define this, it's right underneath here, the study of life. And but what you'll find is as we study this, biology is very basic, right? It's just there's not a lot of it covers so many things. Like if you look at the book, it's just huge. There's so many pages in there because it covers so many things. And you can break biology up into different uh, smaller parts. One of them is ecology. And ecology is just a study of the interactions between different organisms and the other non living things in the environment. So interactions between living and non living things. And an example would be so you have a caribou, right? So you have caribou in Alaska, and they have interactions with the things that they eat, which are plants. But also, you have the pipeline that's up, and that kind of gets in their way sometimes. And ecology looks at all those kind of things. Genetics covers uh, the study of heredity, and that's how your traits are passed on. So if you have a certain color hair, and your parents have a certain color hair, you can notice, and there's other features that you have that they're often uh, very similar. That's because that's genetics. You receive those traits from your parents, and you can study that and learn all about that. And we'll learn about that this year. And then we have microbiology. And microbiology is things, the study of small organisms. Because you see the biology in there, but these are things that are really small and small. Didn't spell small, right? Small organisms, small living things, like things you need a microscope to see, or you need a magnifying glass to really make uh, them out at all. Okay, so this year we're going to study biology, but we're going to look at things like genetics. We're going to look at microbiology when we start investigating things. And so one of the big questions that we're going to address first is what is life? And if we look at the main characteristics of life, the number one is made up of cells. So, and this one ties into all the other ones. We can really start looking at in a minute. We'll talk more about these, but really the main thing is the cell, and it's the basic unit of all living things. So basic. So if you want to break it down, what is the main part of all life? What is it? Every single type of life share. They all have cells. They all start there, and then because of this cell, it enables all these other things, or it has a connection to all the other things. So we could really say because living things have cells, they can reproduce, and they can store their genetic code, and they can grow and develop because the cell changes. And within the cell, they can use or break things down to create energy. And then if we look at these other bottom ones here, let's get them up here, they can respond to their environment, and then they can accomplish homeostasis. But this cell is really the root of everything. And there's two types of cells. One is a eukaryotic, and the other one is prokaryotic. So there's the two types. And eukaryotic are much more complex. That's what kind of cell we are. And most more complex living things are. And then there's prokaryotic. Those are like bacteria and things like that. We'll learn more about this later. But two types of cells, and they're the basic unit of all living things. They're like the building block. Everything is made up of these cells. You just put them together and they do different things. And they make tissues and organs, and you'll see that in the video that you watch. Okay, so the first one, made of cells. If you're a living thing, you have cells. You also are able to reproduce. Okay, and they can be sexually. Sexually means they have gametes, they're called. See if I can spell this with the pen. Gamete. Gamete. And this is uh, a cell used for reproduction. An example would be sperm and an egg. Everybody comes from that. The sperm and egg comes together and creates a new life. Asexual is something completely different, And the asexual is where something splits in two. It can also be something even like a sea star loses an arm. It's not really reproduction though, but it's something else. But so split into, maybe take that back. But so they split in two. So you have a single celled organism like an amoeba. Amoebas don't really do this, but you have a single celled organism, one cell. And this is usually a single cell that's going to do this. So you have this blob here, right? And it just starts breaking into like this, and you see it start to, and even some of our cells do this as well. And then it becomes this cell and this cell, and they're just exact copies. And you start off with one and you get two. Okay. But you think about this, this is easy to do, but if you have a more complex organism like me or you, then cutting us in half, or producing all the different things we have, like a heart and lungs and eyes and all these different things, you can't just split us in two and reform. It's just too complex. So this asexual reproduction is all tied to simple single-celled organisms. Okay, that's the second one. All living things can reproduce. They're made of cells and they can reproduce either sexually or asexually. Then they also have a universal genetic code, which everybody should see as DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. It has this kind of structure to it where it's like a ladder. Kind of looks like this. We'll learn about this more in detail. This carries all the traits that you have. So if we took your DNA out, we could lay it out. We could see all the little compounds that are in there, and we could say this is why you have black hair or blonde hair. This is why you have green eyes or blue eyes. It's all in this molecule. And what's interesting is every cell has it. And it's the same. So if we took a cell from your hand and took the DNA out and looked at it, and then took a cell from, I don't know, your foot and took it out and looked at it, it'd be the same. Now, there are some cells that don't have DNA. We're not going to worry about that. But mostly, you can say that we look at the DNA in every living thing, no matter where the cell's from, it's the same DNA. And this is found in the nucleus. So then we got made of cells, reproduce, universal genetic code, and then all things grow and develop. So they have life, like stages of life. I'm just going to put stages here. So you can really see this, like, more obviously in like insects and stuff. They have like larvae, and then they have an adult form, some of them, like a nymph that can reproduce, or they can be like a caterpillar, larva, pupa, and adult. But even humans have this, though. We're not born completely ready to go. Like we're a baby, and then we have adolescence, then we become mature, and so on. So if you're a living thing, you grow and develop. You have a genetic code. You reproduce, and you're made up of cells. Let's keep going. Almost done. And then we can also obtain and use energy or materials for energy. So that means we can, if we need to walk across the room, we need energy to do that. If we want to run a race, we need energy to do that. If we just want to do anything, right, we need energy. But where do we get the energy from? Well, really, all energy comes from one place. It comes from the sun. And you might say, how does that work, right? Well, there's a word everybody should know: photosynthesis. And that's where all of our energy comes from. So plants, through this process of photosynthesis, they could take the sunlight and they can make it into food. And you might say, well, we can't do that. We're humans, right? But we really do, because we can't do photosynthesis, but we can eat plants. So, and you might also then say, well, I don't eat plants, but you eat things that eat plants. So maybe you're just a carnivore. All you do is eat meat. And say you eat moose. Well, moose eat plants, which produce the energy. So really, in the end, all living things depend on plants. They're called producers, primary producers. And this is any kind of plant. They take the sun, life in the sun, and produce energy. And we then eat that. We eat the energy that they produce, which in the end is just glucose. We then eat them, and then our body can then take that glucose and turn it into energy for our body. It may not be a direct thing, but it's indirectly. If we don't eat plants, we eat other things that do eat plants, and we get it indirectly. So that's obtain and use materials for energy. And the main process we use, other than photosynthesis, and it's really the opposite, it's called cellular respiration. We're going to learn about that in biology. So, cellular respiration. Okay. So photosynthesis takes light from the sun, turns it into energy. Then cellular respiration then takes that glucose, which photosynthesis makes, and turns it into energy. It's like the undoing of photosynthesis. And then also living things can respond to their environment. So if things change, um, if something's happening to them and they're in danger, they can respond to that. Okay. And then the last one is, and we'll look at these in the more detail as we go. But the last one is homeostasis. And this is a steady state. So your body keeps things steady. Some animals do it better than others. Humans are just amazing at this. Like our body temperature, if you took your temperature, most people, they have a constant body temperature. It's around 98.6. A lot of people are just that. And their body temperature doesn't change. If it does, that's trouble, right? So if it goes up, we get a fever, and that tells us we're sick, there's something wrong. And we know somebody's well again when their temperature goes back what it's supposed to be, 98.6. So our body will keep our temperature the same. Okay, 98.6 degrees. And things like pH, the pH level in your body, it remains the same. And your cell, the level of the things inside your cell and outside your cell, and we're going to learn about that pretty soon. Uh, Osmosis and diffusion, your body, the cell, keeps that stable, like the same. It doesn't want to. You don't want to have these constant changes in your body because it's not good for you. So those are the 7 we're going to learn about. And we're going to start really going into this during the next few weeks. But again, if you're a living thing, the characteristics that define you, that make you a living thing, is you're made up of cells. And because you're made up of cells, you can reproduce. And because you're made up of cells, you can produce. You have a universal genetic code because that's found within your nucleus. And then you can grow and develop because your cells can grow and they can be specialized and turn into something else like tissue and organs. And then also your cells allow you to use energy that's created by the sun. Like if you're a plant, that's a living thing. If you're a plant, you just do photosynthesis. But if you're not a plant and you can't photosynthesize, then you have to eat the plants some way, either directly or indirectly. And then you can respond to your environment. So as changes come along, you can respond to that. And then homeostasis, because of the cell, again, it's all tied to the cell. Because of the cell, your body can regulate the things that are coming in. It can regulate the temperature. It can help produce energy and all those kind of things. So that's our introductory notes. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure you printed out the note page and annotated it so you can turn it in for credit.